Hi. I work with Los Angeles City Councilmember Paul Koretz. He's one of the 15 city council members in Los Angeles. And I'll kind of break down the city into component parts so you can see what Los Angeles is like. But what I've been tasked with today is talking about how do you work with City Hall. You guys are doing some really important work in the food business, and so what do you do if you come up against some things that zoning codes that don't work, or other laws that aren't working for you? What do you do? So that's what we're here today to talk about. First of all, I want to thank our host, Pando, Populus, and Pitzer.edu, and their partners, Pitzer College, City of Ontario, Kaiser Permanente's Heal Zone Initiative, and most of all of you who came to make it possible. I'm a big fan and have been partnering with Pando Populus since they had their big conference back in 2015 over at, was it Pomona College? Yes. And so for those of you who weren't lucky enough to attend, the theme of that was seizing an alternative toward an ecological society, which is based on the idea that the world we're living in right now is not actually working, and we're headed toward a cliff, and the only way to stop us is to reinvent everything ecologically. And that's what most of you here today are doing. So I've got the pleasure and the challenge of keeping you awake after lunch, so work with me on this. First, some context on why your work is so important and really vital to the survival of the human species on the planet. You've probably heard that we face a few problems on the Earth, climate change, worldwide soil depletion, worldwide water depletion, and the real problem is this. The world population is 7.4 billion as of 11:42 this morning. And we're on track. Some of the world population figures have us at 16 billion by 2100. Some estimates have us at 10 billion, and some have us at 6 billion. One study that I read has us at 10 billion by 2050, and if we don't figure out climate change, we'll be at 1 billion by 2100. So reinventing the food system is vitally important to not just your grandchildren, not just your children, but to you who are alive today. The problem with the Oroville Dam that's going on right now shows that climate change and our decade-long drought shows that climate change is here in California. It's everywhere around the world, and part of the problem, the biggest problem, is overpopulation. So the other problem is the people in Los Angeles live as though we have 7 Earths, and we consume and consume and consume. Unfortunately, we have one Earth. So the only way to really get there is one Earth is not conducive to this population, unfortunately. So we really have to reinvent everything. And this is, of course, the perfect time in history under the probably best leadership that we've ever, I'm not going to talk about him. So in 2017, it's really up to us locally, on the local level, house by house, building by building, neighborhood by neighborhood, and what you guys are up to, rebuilding the local food supply. It's really up to us, and that's the only way to get it done. So I congratulate you on doing this work in the first place, and the reason I'm here, I used to be a screenwriter, and every year I was like, oh, somebody's taking care of the environment, somebody's taking care of it, and I started getting more and more anxious and writing screenplays about the end of civilization and saving the world, and finally I realized maybe I should go do something about this. So here we are. today. I work for the government. I am not anything like that other guy, and I get myself into lots of trouble. Even having an image with the monkey wrench in front of City Hall would probably get me in trouble, but they're filming this, so we'll just go there. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you work with City Hall? There's a number of ways to interact with City Hall. And there are effective ways and there are ineffective ways, and there's ways to get things done, and there's ways to never get your calls returned ever again. So, one of the ways that we've seen really recently is you fill up the streets with people. And for the Women's March a few weeks ago, I think there were 4.2 million people marching in 600 cities across the United States. And how many of you think that changed that guy's policies at all? Everybody was in the streets, and it was like nobody was in the streets. It's kind of crazy. So the cool thing about being in the streets, though, right after the march, the city council, the LA City Council, voted to oppose Trump's nominee for EPA, and then right after that, Trump's entire slate of cabinet nominations. So it gave the local leaders the chutzpah to stand up to him, because they know that the people in Southern California are in the streets and very much in favor of action. So that's one of the ways that you can interact with your government, just take to the streets. Most of the people who go out in the streets and march don't actually come into City Hall, meet with people. They just go do that and hope something's going to happen. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't walk through the doors, nothing's ever going to change. So I'm going to go through a bunch of case studies, and we'll get through as many as you can stand, or as we can get to. But starting with my own path to City Hall was similar. Back in 2010, I started to get anxious, like I mentioned, and quit screenwriting and started taking sustainability classes at UCLA. And there was a woman named Leslie Tamminen, who's the head of the Clean Seas Coalition, who came in to guest speak, and she said, if you'd like to learn how to lobby on the statewide level, I'd be happy to mentor you. And so I stuck my hand up. I'm like, okay, sounds good. 2 weeks later, I'm on a plane for Sacramento. Leslie doesn't mess around. And so suddenly I'm working with the Clean Seas Coalition on the 2010 version of the statewide plastic bag ban bill, which failed because 7 senators took $3,900 a piece from big plastics, how much is your ocean worth, and voted it down. So I was pissed, and I came back to LA and I said, I'm gonna do this in Los Angeles. And I really didn't have any idea what I was doing, but I knew that in Los Angeles there are 96 to 98 to 100 neighborhood councils throughout the city. And the city's broken into, I was gonna have a map of this, but I didn't find it in time, 15 city council districts. So my boss is one of 15 city council members who represent all these different neighborhoods. So I figured if I went to, if you do some math, you figure that 3 neighborhood councils per council district out of 5 should give the council member enough support or pressure to vote for something. That was my theory, and that's what I went with. So I spent the next 2 years going neighborhood council by neighborhood council and going to the committee meetings. They run the neighborhood councils just like they run city council. You introduce a resolution for something to support the plastic bag ban, and then it goes to a committee. And so you have to go speak at the committee hearing. And then it goes to the full council, so you have to go to the full council. And so it literally took me 2 years to make my way through this whole system. And I just kept bringing all this different support to Councilmember Paul Koretz's office. And I didn't really know them at all. I just knew that he was interested in doing a plastic bag ban. And finally, after literally 2 years of this, they said, we need to get a restraining order on you or hire you. And I was available. I never thought I would work for the government. And a few months earlier, I had been outside of City Hall, literally with the Occupy people, trying to figure out, where the Occupy movement should go. And then suddenly I had an office right above where I remember talking to two of the occupiers. And it's just been a fascinating journey. But the good news is I got to see the plastic bag ban through. And the way that happened, once I was hired, so I'll kind of run you through the whole legislative process within City Hall. A city council member introduces a motion, and there are things called motions, there are things called a resolution. A resolution is when you're telling another governmental body to do something. A motion is when you're going to tell your own government department agencies to do something. So Councilmember Koretz introduces a motion to ban plastic bags in Los Angeles. The motion gets assigned to a committee. Each of the council members is the chair of at least one committee, I think only one committee. And so this one was assigned to Energy and Environment Committee. And sometimes they're assigned to multiple committees. I don't remember if any of you were around with the, we did our motion to ban genetically modified plants from being grown in LA. But that got assigned to 3 committees, which is unheard of, but that tells you the deck was stacked against us. So this one was assigned to Energy and Environment. What happens is the committee chair schedules it on an agenda and hears it. And a couple of things can happen. You can either hear it, the council members on the committee vote and say, yes, we should do this. Then it goes to the full city council. City council votes and says, yes, we should do this on the policy position. And then what that does is send the departments back to, and in this case, sent the Bureau of Sanitation to work with the city attorney to draft an ordinance. And then the ordinance is the official law that says plastic bags are banned in Los Angeles. So then when it's scheduled in committee is when you want to show up with your folks who are supporting you. You bring out, the thing we did with the plastic bag ban, we tried to figure out all the different types of people who are affected or impacted by plastic bags and who would support this. There happened to be a veterans group called Green Vets LA who made reusable bags. And so they were supportive, and so suddenly we have veteran support, which was interesting and different. And so the council members who are particularly into veterans issues were really attuned to these folks. So it's really important to think about who is in your constituency and who's helping support you. And you need to have somebody who appeals to every member of the city council whose vote you want. If you've got 15 city council members, we need at least 10 votes to get an ordinance through. We need 2/3 vote. So I have to appeal to 10 different members in 10 different ways. So some of them are going to vote for environmental issues. Some people are going to vote for veterans issues. Some people are going to vote to clean up the neighborhood. This is a really huge neighborhood improvement motion. And so you're building your coalition, and it's really, really important to appeal to each of the council members. And one of the things that I say to folks that I'm always surprised when people are surprised that I say this, is never have a vote that you don't know the outcome. Like, don't just get it scheduled and hope it's going to go your way, because if you don't know that it's going to go your way, something's going to happen. And that's what happened with our GMO motion. Because we had some lobbyists kind of working really hard to kill it. We thought we had the votes, and then we didn't, and people were not telling the truth. So it's really important to know where your votes lie. So with the plastic bag ban, we got all these different groups out. We had people go meet with the city council members. We had people meet with the city staffers. So these are the people that work directly for the council members, and that's what I am. And then you've also got people who work in the departments, and it's what people call the bureaucracy. But it's people who are literally work for the city for 10, 15, 20 years. And some of them actually think that they don't really worry about the council members so much because they know the council members are going to be gone after 4, 8, 12 years. And the bureaucrats kind of really run things. So one effective method of getting things done at City Hall is really get to know people within the departments. And you can actually get things done that way if you've got if you've got combative city council members who aren't in your favor, you can actually go behind the scenes and get things done through the departments. So that's really important to remember, since a lot of really good work is being really politicized right now. Like, who thinks it's a good idea to not have an environmental protection agency? You know, what? Really? And I don't think people who voted even think about that. So one of the things that's going to happen in DC is a lot of the bureaucrats are just going to sit on things and not let anything happen, which I hope happens a lot. So in the committee hearing, the department comes up, it does a report on, you know, what are the impacts, what are the environmental, there's an EIR process, what are the environmental impacts of a plastic bag in the city. And in this case, all the impacts are going to be positive. There are negative impacts in terms of, you know, what's the life cycle of a plastic bag versus the life cycle of a reusable bag. But then if you add them up together, you know, a gazillion plastic bags that are used a year versus you use the same reusable bags over and over again, and it just doesn't even match up. So you compare those, you compare, you know, how much money is it going to save the city, and it saved the city a whole ton of money from having to clean up plastic bags in neighborhoods. And it turned out to be so popular, and this was kind of the cool part, that the state, after failing in multiple tries, got the ordinance approved at a statewide level, and then the plastic bag industry fought it, got it on the ballot, and the people of California, 40 million people, voted for a statewide plastic bag ban because they thought it was a good idea. And all of that came back from this. So the impacts that you have, especially in Los Angeles, Eugene and I talk about this often, that the city of Los Angeles, according to the Guardian newspaper, is the #1 branded city in the world. So we have the biggest impact. What happens here has the biggest impact and resonates around the world. It's really interesting, you know, back in the 1700s, Paris was the queen city of the world. In the 1800s, England, and 1900s, New York, and now it's us. So think about that. Think about your impacts here. What we do here really echoes throughout the world, and people are really looking to us for leadership, especially in Cheeto world. So any questions about that? What I'm going to do is just kind of run through a few case studies, and if you guys have questions about the process or anything like that, anything you didn't understand, it's probably better to even ask me questions, because I don't even know when I'm not telling you. So any questions about that particular case study?
Well, when you were lobbying all those people for the 2 years before they hired you at City Hall, did you have a means of support? Because that's a lot. Not everybody can afford to take off.
Right now, I was working.
Oh.
I was doing that at night.
Oh, okay.
The neighborhood council meetings are at night. So, and a lot of smaller cities, like our city council meets three days a week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. But a lot of smaller cities meet at night because they're cognizant of many of the smaller city council members don't even get paid, so they have to work also. Anybody else? So that's one case study. The next, so that one was under the title of Be Yourself, and I was just kind of didn't really know what I was doing, but I was really following my passion and my anger. And the deeper you get into an issue, the better you know it. And the cool thing about going to the neighborhood councils every question you could possibly ask about plastic bags, I have answered. And so by the time we got to the city council, when people were raising issues and saying this or that, I'd already addressed it. And so I was kind of ahead of the game. So if you do something like that and you speak in front of people and you answer questions, you really get to know your issue really well in ways that, that you didn't even expect to. So, so case study number 2 is Be Gorilla. You know, my example was kind of like work within the system and then somehow infiltrate the system. So this one is most of you have probably seen this talk, but I want you to look at it through the eyes of the relationship to City Hall and the impact that it had.
I live in South Central. This is South Central. Liquor store, fast food, vacant lots. So the city planners, they get together and they figure they got to change the name South Central to make it represent something else. So they change it to South Los Angeles. Like this is going to fix what's really going wrong in the city. This is South Los Angeles. Liquor store, fast food, vacant lots. Just like 26.5 million other Americans, I live in a food desert. South Central Los Angeles, home of the drive-through and the drive-by. Funny thing is, the drive-throughs are killing more people than the drive-by. People are dying from curable diseases in South Central Los Angeles. For instance, the obesity rate in my neighborhood is like 5 times higher than, say, Beverly Hills, which is like probably 8-10 miles away. I got tired of seeing this happen. And I wonder, how would you feel if you had no access to healthy food? If every time you walk out your door, you see the ill effects that the present food system has on your neighborhood? I see wheelchairs bought and sold like used cars. I see dialysis centers popping up like Starbucks. And I figured this has to stop. So I figured that the problem is the solution. Food is the problem, and food is the solution. Plus, I got tired of driving 45 minutes round trip to get an apple that wasn't impregnated with pesticides. So what I did, I planted a food forest in front of my house. It's on a strip of land that we call a parkway. It's like 150 feet by like 10 feet. The thing is, it's owned by the city, but you have to maintain it. So I'm like, cool. I can do whatever the hell I want. Since it's my responsibility and I gotta maintain it, and this is how I decided to maintain it. So me and my group, LA Green Ground, we got together and we started planting my food forest, fruit trees, you know, the whole nine, vegetables. What we do, we're a pay-it-forward kind of group, where it's composed of like gardeners from all walks of life from all over the city, and it's completely volunteer, and everything we do is free. And the garden was beautiful. And then somebody complained. The city came down on me. and basically gave me a citation saying that I had to remove my garden, which this citation would turn into a warrant. And I'm like, come on, really? A warrant for planting food on a piece of land that you could care less about? And I was like, cool, bring it. Because this time it wasn't coming up. So LA Times got hold of it. Steve Lopez did a story on it and talked to the councilman. And one of the Green Ground members, they put up a petition on change.org. And with 900 signatures, we were a success. We had a victory on our hands. My councilman even called and said how they endorse and love what we're doing. I mean, come on, why wouldn't they? LA leads the United States in the vacant lot that the city actually owns. They own 26 square miles of vacant lots. That's 20 Central Parks. That's enough space to plant 700 million, 725 million tomato plants. Why in the hell would they not okay this? Growing one plant will give you 1,000, 10,000 seeds. Okay. When $1 worth of green beans will give you like $75 worth of produce. It's like this is my gospel. I'm telling people, grow your own food. Growing your own food is like printing your own money. See, I have a legacy in South Central. I grew up there. I raised my sons there. And I refuse to be a part of this manufactured reality that was manufactured for me by some other people, and I'm manufacturing my own reality. See, I'm an artist. Gardening is my graffiti. I grow my art. Just like a graffiti artist, where they beautify walls, me, I beautify lawns, parkways. I use the garden, the soil, like it's a piece of cloth. And the plants and the trees, that's my embellishment for that cloth. You'd be surprised what the soil could do if you let it be your canvas. You just couldn't imagine how amazing a sunflower is and how it affects people. So what happened? I have witnessed my garden become a tool for the education, a tool for the transformation of my neighborhood. To change the community, you have to change the composition of the soil. We are the soil. You'd be surprised how kids are affected by this. Gardening is the most therapeutic and defiant act you can do, especially in the inner city. Plus you get strawberries. I remember this time, there was this mother and a daughter came, they were, it was like 10:30 at night, they were in my yard. And I came out and they looked so I was like, man, it made me feel bad that they were there, and I told them, you don't have to do this like this. This is on the street for a reason. It made me feel ashamed to see people that was this close to me that was hungry, and this only reinforced why I do this. And people ask me, Finn, aren't you afraid people are gonna steal your food? And I'm like, hell no, I ain't afraid they're gonna steal it. That's why it's on the street. That's the whole idea. I want them to take it, but at the same time, I want them to take back their health. There's another time when I put a garden in this homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles. The guys, they helped me unload the truck. It was cool, and they just shared the stories about how this affected them and how they used to plant with their mother and their grandmother, and it was just cool to see how this changed them if it was only for that one moment. So Green Grounds has gone on to plant maybe like 20 gardens. We've had like people, like 50 people come to our dig-ins and participate. It's all volunteers. If kids grow kale, kids eat kale. If they grow tomatoes, they eat tomatoes. But when none of this is presented to them, if they're not shown how food affects the mind and the body, they blindly eat whatever the hell you put in front of them. I see young people, and they want to work, but they're in this thing where they're caught up. I see kids of color, and they just on this track that's designed for them that leads them to nowhere. So with gardening, I see an opportunity where we can train these kids to take over their communities, to have a sustainable life. And when we do this, who knows? We might produce the next George Washington Carver. But if we don't change the composition of the soil, we will never do this. Now this is one of my plans. This is what I want to do. I want to plant a whole block of gardens where people can share in the food in the same block. I want to take shipping containers and turn them into healthy cafes. And now don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about no free shit, because free is not sustainable. funny thing about sustainability, you have to sustain it. What I'm talking about is putting people to work, getting kids off the street.
So that's another way of engaging with City Hall, which is he sees this really obvious thing. We've got all these parkways across the whole city that the only thing that a parkway really does officially is it gives someone a place to get out of their car. That's the official reason for a parkway. And he identifies all these open lots as this is an opportunity to grow some shit and just starts doing it because it doesn't make any sense to not do that. And the city gives him a ticket and gives him a fine and then issues a warrant for his arrest. And so he does something which is really smart. He goes to the LA Times and says, this doesn't make any sense at all. And he got Steve Lopez, who's kind of the conscience of the LA Times, to do a story on it. And suddenly, with the press behind him, and suddenly everybody across Los Angeles who has heard about this, he's got pressure on the city council. And the city council's like, no, this is a great idea. And suddenly the council members have him right beside them. And the council members weren't like really opposed to this. It was just the bureaucrats issuing the citations and the warrant for his arrest, the machine kind of rolling forward. And then the council's like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense actually. And the only issues that were really brought up are by the city attorney, of course, saying, well, what if somebody steps on a strawberry and slips and hurts themselves? And, why don't we take that risk? So he really literally changed city policy, and this is the motion that Councilmember Wesson introduced to change the policy directly as a result of Ron Finley. So it's if you've got sort of a renegade spirit, follow your spirit and change city policy. If it doesn't make sense, and if council members are digging their heels in and saying they don't want to change it, or there's a special interest reason that you're being fought, get support, get people out with you, find other people that think this makes a lot of sense, and fix it. So that brings the next case study, which is be persistent. This next group I worked with, they're called Honey Love. And they realized that backyard beekeeping in Los Angeles wasn't legal. And it wasn't actually illegal, but it wasn't legal, which is a weird sort of Neverland. And so they showed up at my neighborhood council called the Mar Vista Community Council Green Committee. We have a Green Committee which I sit on. And they showed up about 2012 and said, the main guy said, I have this dream about bees kind of attacking me in my backyard, and then instead of attacking him and stinging him, they kind of lifted him up. And he took this to heart, and you'll see him in a minute, and said, I need to do this. I need to go protect bees because, as you guys know probably all too well, bees are dying across the world, and without bees, there's no human being without bees. Luckily Monsanto is going to fix it with some robo bees.
Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a patent out for a robo bee right now.
Where's
It's insane. But the good news is, in Los Angeles, the bees are doing fine, and actually people come borrow our bees in the Central Valley to go pollinate during pollination season. So anyway, these guys knew this. Rob is his name, and Chelsea, his then girlfriend, now wife, decided they wanted to do this. And so they came to the council. We made a recommendation that they do a pilot project just with our neighborhood council because people are afraid of bees. And So we did a pilot project where, and this was my part, which I'm proud of. We got the two most conservative, cantankerous people on the council to agree to have beehives in their backyard. Because I figured if they supported it, then all the cantankerous, crazy neighborhood council folks across the city would see that these very sort of famously conservative folks were for it, and they would probably be for it as well. And so we did that. We did a pilot, and then I also told them, and this was right after I had done the plastic bag ban. I told them that they needed to do the same thing I had done and go educate the whole city of Los Angeles about why it's important to have bees in your backyard. And because otherwise you're going to get people freaked out about their kid getting stung, and people have very legitimate allergies. So, so they spent actually 4 years going neighborhood council by neighborhood council by neighborhood council by neighborhood council, and getting support and bringing it in. There was a lot of there was one group that was fighting it, which I'm still not clear why they were. But they kept going around and kind of scaring people and showing pictures of people being stung to death. And it was weird, actually, and I still don't fully understand it. But so they really put in the time and effort to really educate the city of Los Angeles on why this was important. And as part of their educational campaign, they let's see if this is going to work for me. It's not going to work for me. Don't look. That's next. As part of their educational campaign, they really made this their life, which was amazing. They did a bunch of things like that.
Hey, it's Rob and Chelsea from Honey Love.
Happy National Honeybee Day, everyone! Yay bees! When you're smiling,
The third string.
the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing, when you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. But when you're crying, you bring all the rain, so stop your sighing. Be happy again, keep on smiling, 'cause when you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba,
You get the point. But I mean, they really, really had fun with it, and got the whole city involved. And they ended up, when we got the bee ordinance approved, literally I've never seen anything like it. We were quoted in newspapers around the world. I think I lost count at I stopped counting at 100 different articles about the bees. That Los Angeles, the city of freeways and smog and conspicuous consumption, was taking care of their bees. And we're hoping that the city of Los Angeles starts to be known for our mountain lion, who we're doing everything we can to protect. We're building wildlife corridors and getting rid of rodenticides, and our bees and our sustainability, because if LA can do it, anybody can do it. And so these guys literally just took this on, and it's become their lives in a really amazing way. And so from a council perspective, this one was sent off to the planning department because it's a zoning regulation. And planning sat down with the attorneys and figured out that all they needed to do to fix the ordinance was add the words "and bees." Like, that was the whole change to the city code. Because there's a list of things you can have on your property, which is, dogs and cats and birds, and they just had to add "and bees." And that was the whole change. It was hilarious. So we got that approved. That's my boss. And this is the council member who introduced it. introduced the motion in where I actually live. He passed away a couple years ago, but we brought him in for the signing ceremony with the mayor, and so that was like his last act, which was cool. So once you get things approved, and then with the mayor and the city council members, you can have a signing ceremony, which is really fun. And the mayor will give out, pens that he signs the ordinance with, and sometimes there's a big gathering of folks, of the advocates, and sometimes there's not. So that's another way to work with City Hall, and just kind of build a really fun movement. And not everybody is going to make videos and be Ron Finley and be Chelsea, who embraced her Venus and made up a dance and did flash mob. That's not the only one. And have big parties, and they really made it fun. They had honey tasting parties, and just be as creative as possible, and always realize that you're not just educating the council members and the staffers and the city department folks, but you're educating the people who live in the city, because that's kind of the more important thing. So another way to approach City Hall is to join in with the big groups that are really effective at changing policy. What are we doing? So the Sierra Club did a Beyond Coal campaign where they literally went council member by council member, slowly getting people to sign on to get the city of Los Angeles beyond coal. And it took them probably 8 years. And back when they started, the Department of Water Power was like, there is no possible way we're going to get off coal power. And we did it, and it was cool. And my boss was the first one to sign on. So they've been really effective. Lately, the Food and Water Watch has been really effective on a lot of stuff. The Aliso Canyon natural gas leak, methane leak. They've been working on that pretty hard. The LA Food Policy Council, for you guys, if you're not involved with them, they're really amazing. They've kind of interconnected all the food folks around Los Angeles and around the region, and have really, literally been changing food policy that's been echoing across the country. One of the things we did with them was establish a good food purchasing policy for the city of Los Angeles, which means that if you're going to purchase food for any of our departments or any of our proprietaries, that you have to follow these really strict guidelines, which are humane treatment of animals, low pesticide, low herbicide use, non-GMO if possible, organic if possible, really strict policies. And this has been working its way through LAUSD, the school district adopted it, and different places around the country are now starting to adopt it. And it's like this really stealthy policy that is changing the food system, because it's forcing governments to, or having governments purchase food that's the kind of food we want for an ecological society that we're working toward. And that's working better than label GMOs, which was a substantial campaign and really did a big thing. But this is literally changing it at the farmer level, and it's remarkable with the purchasing power of the city. So it's important to remember the purchasing power of the city can also be leveraged for your benefit. How's our time going? What do you think?
Well, we got started late, but some people do need to leave, so I would probably try to wrap it up so we have a little time for questions.
Yeah, so let's go for questions now. Of course, there's one last sort of group of engagement with City Hall, which is lobbyists. And if you're not in meeting with your city council member or the city council staff or the department staff, you should know that there are people who are paid to do that and maintain those relationships. And and they do that. They get paid a lot of money. And my boss literally thinks that some of these people are his friends. Don't record that. But it's because he sees them all the time, and you know they're friends, sort of, but they're paid to come tell him something about something. And it doesn't matter what level of city council that you have, they have lobbyists who are working on it. So always remember that wherever you are. So it's up to you and your groups and your relationships to be better friends or be educating the policymakers. Because that's really the only way that we're going to keep a special interest from running everything. So lastly, and then I'll take questions, all of you, since you're involved in growing food, I encourage you to get involved in the federal farm bill, which is coming up. It happens every 5 years. It's coming up again in 2018. And so whoever your Congress members are out here, you know, we're a little outgunned in Congress right now. But the farm bill takes a long time and a lot of effort. So get involved now. Start educating your Congress member now on what you want in the farm bill. Because right now it subsidizes things upside down. Industrial farming, you know, Monsanto, all that stuff gets subsidies, and organic farming doesn't. And it's just upside down if we want to create the world that we really need. So, so those are my thoughts. Do you have any questions?
Has anybody that you know in the city of LA taken advantage of the agricultural tax program, the AB?
Oh, the urban ag incentive zone. Yeah. So I was going to hit that a little bit before, but so everybody knows what that is. You want to describe it really quick?
Essentially, you get an agricultural tax bracket, so you get a break if you grow food 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So if you have an empty lot that you're not building anything on, or you're not going to do anything with, you get a property tax break if you let somebody grow food on it for 3 to 5 years. And it's a state bill saying that every city, I think it's requiring that every city does this, or allowing it somehow.
Well, I heard it was just unincorporated.
So unincorporated LA County has approved it. LA City is addressing it next week. It's coming to before the planning committee next week, as far as I understand. And any of you who are going to be in LA, we can use some people out.
What website can we go to see that information?
Or
what website can we go to see that information to go?
if you go to, check out the LA Food Policy Council.
LA Food.
Yeah. Contact them and they'll let you know what's up.
So following up on the ag incentive zone, I was discussing this with someone earlier. What is, because I see the benefit to the landowner, I see the benefit to the farmer. What is the argument to the city council?
Why should the city do it?
What is the benefit to them?
It's like this council, and we just one guy retired who was actually okay on this issue, but bad on other issues. But this council on the whole is pretty progressive, and they get that, like the Ron Finley stuff. They get that there are food deserts in LA, and that how important it is to really reinvent the food system. So they get that. There's not an incentive necessarily for the city, but it's good public policy.
Essentially, would you encourage that? That's the argument becoming. This is good public
It's good public policy, yeah. It's good land use. If land isn't being used for something, I think it's better use than some uses of land. And if you really look down, like I showed you at the beginning with the population bomb, we really need to start thinking outside the box. And people get that. Because it's not just coming, it's here.
This is basically a mini Williamson Act.
Oh, what's
Or
the Williamson
a
Act?
mini Williamson Act, is that what this is?
I
Or
don't
maybe
know
you don't even know what
I
the
don't know
word
what that is.
I've been a farm kid since the 50s, okay. The Williamson Land Act was a California law, statewide law that was passed in the 60s that said the way that farmland was appraised for property taxes was changed. If you, as a farmer, elected to put your land in an agricultural preserve so that you are promising you will not sell it for any other use for 10 years, I think it was, then you would have, it would be appraised as farmland rather than for whatever the county assessor decided was its highest and best use, which would be development.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
And
still
I
in place.
have heard
Oh,
of
yeah.
that another time.
Uh-huh.
Yes, sir.
I could barely hear you at front. Is this only for empty lots only, or does that also go for home structures that have been able to turn a lot into a farm?
Any lot that's empty that's not being used for something else.
Really?
So I think if you tear something down and
But you can't have an existing structure, like a house on it. It has to be an empty lot.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah. It would, that's a good question to ask, is like, what if I want to do this in my backyard?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I was under the impression that a private home could be used in it.
No, that's a great question. I'll have my watch ask. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
So, it sounds like you've been through this with your first initial experience. What strategies would you recommend for actually getting in touch with people, having them sit down with you, whether it's you're not going to the city council immediately, but with staffers and other people? If we don't have contacts, if we are just somebody in the community, how do you go about it?
It's good to kind of find some allies who are connected. Everywhere that you are, there's going to be groups who work on City Hall, people who like beautify Claremont, or sustainable Claremont, I think is a good example, or HOA, homeowners associations, any kind of little group that you can get, get your neighbors in, even if it's just you. Usually it will help if there's 3 or 4 of you, and if there's 3 or 4 of you from a homeowners association, or but it's particularly in the smaller towns. Where do you live? Pomona. Smaller town than mine. You should be able to get a meeting with your council member. It shouldn't be that hard. And if it becomes hard, then you get more people. It's one of those things where it's like, you try one thing, if it doesn't work, here's my next slide. If one thing doesn't work, if you can't go in the front door, go in the back door. If you can't go in the back door, dig a tunnel. Like, if something's really important to you, don't let anybody stop you. And if you know it's the right thing to do, and you know it's going to benefit society, just keep after it, keep gathering people up until you've changed things. Like, don't let anything stop you. And if the council member isn't meeting with you, figure out who his donors are, who her donors are. Like, get one of them on board. Like, everybody's got to submit ethics reports that says where they got all their money. You can be like, I know this person. Good. So there's leverage. Just find the leverage.
And a lot of times these groups, like in Pomona Hope has, in the place where they put their community garden, they've brought the neighborhood together, they've made crime plummet. So, it's, there's arguments for supporting this kind of stuff for the good of society and the betterment of health and less police action needed, sort of thing.
One of the things to remember is if your council member isn't necessarily progressive or visionary, that you need to learn to speak to them where they are instead of speaking to them where you are. Because food people have their very own vocabulary over many decades, right? Like, they speak a certain way, they dress a certain way, they have like a code. So do council members. Like, I don't fit in great at City Hall because I'm more you and enviro than I am suit guy. But it's amazing what happens when you put on a suit. And if you're going to meet with your council member, put on, look nice, look like them. Go meet them where they are. And it's important because it shows respect. But also, once I put on a suit and tie, the change in people's response to me was remarkable. Like, people suddenly listen and took me seriously where they didn't before. And it's just because I'm still me, you know. And it's not like you're selling out or becoming an establishment. It's you're being effective. And so keep that as a tool for being effective. So,
I think there's something to be said about just going out and doing it, and proving that it works, demonstrating that it works. Kind of reminds me of what Joe Salatin has done on the other side of the country. He does it anyways, and then gets permission if he needs to.
right.
Later. And I think a lot of us in the food movement, it's not about waiting for permission first. It's go ahead and do it.
Right.
Because eventually they're going to
Exactly. Totally agree. Anybody else? So I just want to close with one last quick example of you know how long exactly it can take for you to bring massive substantive change. So I show up at climate change movies sometimes because I know when people walk out and they're ready to slit their wrists. And so I always try to be like the last person who speaks to sort of blow a little light back into everybody a little hope. And I did this at this screening in Venice, California, where I stood up and said, I don't even remember what I said, but this younger guy comes up to me and says, you know, one of the really most important things we can do for climate change is soil health. Like we promote soil health, healthy soil sequesters carbon, and we can actually take the carbon dioxide out of the air. And I had heard that before. And this is one of the reasons I actually have hope that we are going to solve all our problems, is because about 10 other people had been saying something similar to me in the previous 6 months to this. And I said to him, all right, he said, we should really do this. So I gave him my card. I said, you know, send me an email. And in the interim, he emailed me probably the next day, but then my baby boy was born, and so I was very busy suddenly, more busy than I had been. And he kept saying, you know, when are we going to meet? When are we going to meet? I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you this list of these 10 people who have been saying we should do a grand composting organics program in the city of Los Angeles. You organize the meeting, I'll host it, and give you the, you know, council member credibility, and we'll meet. Great. So the morning of the meeting was a Monday morning. I called the Bureau of Sanitation, and we had just moved to revamp our entire commercial waste hauling system, so that we could increase recycling, reduce the amount of stuff going to the landfill. And I called the Bureau of Sanitation, and they were putting together RFP, request for proposal, for this huge change. And we were going to divide the city into 11 zones and, you know, really, really change the whole waste system. So that morning I called sanitation. I said, how long do we have to get an organics chapter into the RFP? And they've been working on it for a while. He said, Andy, you have a week. So we met that afternoon. This kid I had never met before, 15 other people who had never met before, got to work on this chapter, and in a week, got it into the RFP. And when we got all the proposals back, all of the proposers had really robust organics recycling proposals. So in a week, this guy changed the history of Los Angeles. And I might have missed it. Like, my son was being born, and this could have gone by, and then we would have been trying to catch up. And in a week, he did it. It was amazing. And on July 1st, we're going to start, the whole new system's going to start up, and organics is going to be a big part of it. So that's what one person can do, talking to somebody at City Council at the right moment. So if you really feel it, like I really feel a big synchronicity working among all of us. Call it spirit, call it whatever you want. it's something, it's your intuition. Listen to it, go to the people in power, and make them listen to you. Because that's the only way we're going to change things. And you guys are doing the work, and it's amazing, and I applaud you, and I hope. So thanks so much for coming. And I believe there's one other order of business that that now Huerta de Valle is an official Pando hub, right? So Eugene, you want to come up and make an official presentation of the stickers?
Right there.
So the Pando hubs, one of the things at the conference that we've been talking about, we're trying to figure out what are the active ways that we can actually build this ecological society. And I've been working with Eugene on Pando hubs, like identifying folks who are actually doing the work and connecting them and mentoring them. And so now this is officially